Susan.
Hi, Diana.
It's so good to see you again. I missed your face.
I know.
Your
This is
smiling,
so much more
soulful
fun to
face.
see you. You
I
too. I
agree.
love it.
I agree. I'm really glad that I improved my tech skills and I'm able to Zoom because
Yes, I love it.
it's nicer to talk if we can't be in person to see each other through the computer. So I'm
Totally.
so glad you wanted to come back on and talk because you have this amazing knack for amazing conversations with your intellect as well as your your energy and your awareness. So it always makes for a beautiful conversation. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. I love
Yeah.
chatting with you.
And I just want to tell everyone who's listening that you may remember Susan from earlier on when I first started the pod a few months back. It's actually only been 6 months. I feel like it's been longer, but Susan's pod is number 2. And
Woohoo!
she recorded like a few months into it. So the fact that she's number 2 says a lot about the subject and just your presentation of the information. People are really I think hungry for information about homeschooling and also
Mhm.
these conversations because we're really in we're in a little bit of a challenging time globally,
Mhm.
spiritually,
Yeah,
politically, health wise. I mean,
definitely.
we can go on and on, physical and mental. Um, and so I think that that's one of the reasons why people are so drawn to listening to you. Certainly it is for me. I mean, I wish we could have coffee talk every day, but I'll just settle for listening to you because you don't have the time to talk to me every single day. Um, Catch us up on what's been going on and let's dive in.
Yeah, let's dive in. Yeah, I mean, I just love being on your podcast, and you're right. People just really are craving the homeschooling information too. I actually was a little surprised how deep we got into it because I could sense that your interest in learning more. And actually, as you know, that's one of the reasons I wanted to come back on because there was something I said that was just bothering me since that call. And of course, it was the last thing I said. And so, I wouldn't mind just starting there if you don't mind.
Please go right ahead.
All right, pick up where we left off. So, Diana has like an awesome way of ending her podcast every time, and she asked me like, "What advice do I have for parents?" And I felt so clever. I found an old blog that I had written, and the first 2 things I had written are to remember that children are people and that parenting is a relationship. And on my blog, that was it. That's where I ended it. Just 2 things. But then I had this like burst of inspiration, and maybe this is like meant to be. I don't know. Where I added to like remember that behavior is communication, and I think I went so far to say that all behavior is communication. And I didn't think much of it. But then I sent the podcast to my therapist for Carter, the spell to communicate. And they actually didn't write me back. But as I just started making the connections, I was like, wait a second. This is exactly what Dana has told me is that not all behavior is communication. And it just got under my skin because, well, I still have a little perfectionism in me. But it's not just that. It's because I care so deeply, especially for parents of children with special needs. And there's such a huge learning curve right now. I know for myself, it's a huge learning curve, but just like for everyone, whether you've been parenting, like Diana's son is a little bit older, or even like young adults, like there's so many new things all the time. And so it just bothered me so much that like I might have said something that would either confirm something for someone or just not help their relationship with their child. So I just had to get back on here and set that straight. And I think it's something we can talk a lot about actually, because it's not that their behavior is never communication. For sure, our children are communicating with us with their behavior. And I have a good story I can elaborate in a little bit. But it's that we can't always count on it. That's my interpretation. What would you say, Diana?
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. And, you and I we're learning this new way of thinking sort of
Mhm.
simultaneously. Um,
Yeah.
you down south and,
Mhm.
and me up north, but
Yes.
wherever you are in the world, if you're participating in Spell to Communicate, the philosophy is the
Mhm.
same, and it is science based. There's a lot of nuances and unfortunately debates about it, but I
Mhm.
just for our listeners, I want to say that as you and I know, science is always evolving, and the reason why there's not a
Yes.
lot of science on this particular therapy is just because of funding, really, for why all science usually isn't evolving as quickly, or why all studies may not be getting done as quickly as we'd like to see them, because it's just a funding issue.
Mhm.
So when we start these processes, it's like anecdotal evidence, and we see anecdotally how it's helping Carter and how it's helping Colin. And
Mhm.
just the other day when I was practicing Spell to Communicate, which just for the audience, it's basically a letterboard format, just to refresh your memory. And your kids are going through a process of learning a lesson, and then they're actually spelling words and answering questions on a letterboard or a stencil. As a mom, because I want to practice with Colin more, the more he practices, the more I practice, the better we get, right? As with anything. And the whole goal is to get him to a point where he's conversational with spelling.
Mhm.
So he can tell me
Mhm.
all the beautiful things he's thinking about and all
Mhm.
the things that he really doesn't like, and um,
Mhm.
ask me questions.
Yeah.
Think about that. Like our kids can't answer us questions. And
Yeah.
um, so the reason I tell that backstory is just to kind of paint a little bit of a visual. And so when it was my turn, the therapist had done her process with Colin. She does like 3 paragraphs and then I do 2. And
Mhm.
when it was my turn, I was so highly focused on, I think they call it position
Mhm.
coaching,
Mhm.
that I was getting a little off with my rhythm with the letterboards. And Colin was doing a beautiful job. He was keeping up. It was me
Mhm.
that was lagging, and he was being very patient with me. And a couple times he even looked over at me like, "What's wrong with you?" But at the end of it, when I was reflecting, what I had realized was that I was so hyper focused on the job positioning coaching. I'm still learning these terms, because if the child is not sitting in 90-degree angles, their body is thrown off, which throws off their senses, what goes back to the whole sensory motor cortex science part of this therapy. And the
Gotcha.
slightest bit, Colin loves to cross his legs. He's like an elderly man in that way. He loves to cross his legs and drink his coffee. And that's his sort of go-to. And I had to keep reminding him, both feet on
Yep.
the floor to spell. And what the therapist reminded me at the end of the session is, Diana, just remember that it is a learned motor plan. So it's not like some people might say, oh, he's not focused, or
Right.
he's not self-regulated, and
Right.
part of that is he's not self-regulated, but that's just one small example. But really what it
Yes.
is that he is so conditioned to that motor movement of crossing his legs. And so we just have to keep
Yes.
practicing both feet on the floor, and we put like little
Yes.
X's to mark his feet. And he's getting there. And I actually used an example in Colin's recent IEP, and his IEP team is amazing at school, and they're so open to learning and to hearing about the program that we're working on at home. And what came out in the IEP was that Colin's receptive skills are so strong, and it's not that he isn't learning, it's that the output isn't what they need for the way they're presenting the information to Colin, right?
Mm.
And what I tried to explain was a really short little version of the whole learned motor movement and how it's just a matter of both forces coming together.
Yeah.
So basically presenting in a way that he can relate to, that he's inspired by, that he is motivated by.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the way it's presented is so overused, so routine, so boring, right? Not being
Mm-hmm.
challenged. It's a very different way of looking at the way we do therapy with our kids.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to just, this is such a long-winded answer, I know, but I just want to like finish that with a couple weeks ago in Spell to Communicate in our spare bedroom where we do his therapy. Colin was having a difficult time. And internally, he was very upset. He was restless. He was dysregulated. His brain was telling his body to do things that was out of his control.
Yep.
And before you know it, we had a small hole in the wall.
Oh
So
dear.
it is what it is. It's a
Right.
learned behavior, but the last
Mm-hmm.
time we had a small hole in the wall was about 6 months ago.
Right.
So I guess once again, we are giving him these tools. He's learning different strategies. The motor movement, he's learning new positive motor movements, new strategies, and trying to break the cycles of the old motor movements that were negatively
Yes.
reinforced.
Yes.
Does this, I know it makes sense to you, but it was so
It
long
does,
winded.
but I'm still like, I'm learning from you because Carter, Carter's not yet at the point where he's sitting and spelling. So just hearing that part about like the 90-degree angles and so this is kind of my thing. So I'm going to have people listening to this that only have neurotypical children. So I want to just briefly explain a little bit what we're talking about here. When J.B. Handley's book came out, um, Underestimated, about his son, I read that, and this was like completely paradigm shifting for me and for so many people around the world. And he said it in his book, and he's gone on podcasts and on his blog that everything he thought about his son was wrong. So it's one of those, and I've been talking a lot about that lately, right? Like where the world turned upside down, everything flipped, and everything you thought you knew. And what kind of breaks my heart is how many parents still believe that their children don't understand or they're intellectually disabled. Now I know everyone's unique, and so I take all of this like with a grain of salt. Like we don't know individually, but what I'm hearing from like JB and other people is that the vast majority of our children absolutely know what's going on, absolutely are functioning at a much higher cognitive level than we're giving them credit for. And so what we learned is that they're actually just not in control of their body. That's why we keep talking about motor stuff. It's an issue in their motor part of their brain, not the cognitive part of their brain, if you could split that up. And so like when we talk about receptive language, that means, okay, when they hear us, they know what we're saying. And the thing that's been interesting with Carter, and I think this is actually typical of many children, is he's gone through different phases, and he's only 6 years old, where like, we'd say, oh, we're going somewhere, and he'd go right to the car. And now he's in a motor loop where even when I say we're going for a walk, he'll still go to the car, like even though he may know. And so it's very interesting. And the therapist also warned me about like having him always point to one picture in the same place and not having, it's the same thing. So anyways, that's long story to say is that these motor behaviors, and that's why many of our children are not speaking, because speaking is highly motor, which we don't think about, but our vocal cords are controlled by motor parts of our brain. It's not something we have to actively think about. The same thing with our fingers, right? Fine motor. And so it is, it's just like a totally different way of looking at your children, your special needs, your autistic children, non-speaking. And most of our therapists don't even know this. So then parents are in the position of like having to explain, maybe not saying, oh, definitely, but even just opening their minds to it, I think is so huge. Like, he understands everything, but he can't get his body to do the things we're asking to him to do all the time. Now, I do think like the emotional part, like they show us how they're feeling right through their emotion. Like, obviously Colin was not happy when he put a hole in the wall. Like, I think that's pretty easy to tell. And the story I was going to tell of Carter is when we moved to Florida, we didn't really prepare him at all. He was, gosh, how old was he? He was 4. And so we didn't really talk to him about it because we weren't in the habit. Like, this is a new habit for us to just keep him up to date. Like, what's going on in our family? What are we doing? And we arrived here after packing up our whole house and driving 12 hours. And we pull in the driveway and I'm like, we're home. And we got in the house and he had the worst meltdown of his life. Like, inconsolable, screaming, like so upset. And it didn't take me long to figure out, like, he probably thought mom lost her marbles. Like, she's just gone and like lost her mind. Like, this is not home. Like, she said we were home and like, we're in some strange place. And so that was like a little heartbreaking to realize later, but it was such a great learning moment too, because once I learned about all this stuff through reading this book, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need to be a better communicator with him and just always assume that he understands me. So anyways,
That's a
that's
good
that.
story.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was like, I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah, and I it's so relatable, right? I mean, everyone, like you said, even in the neurotypical world can understand that. Imagine if for the neurotypical parents out there, if you didn't tell your kid you were, going somewhere and like all of a sudden we just showed up. I mean, I think everybody can relate to that story.
Yeah,
And they weren't mentally prepared, you
right,
know?
right.
Um, and it's all learning experience for all of us. That's why science is
Hmm.
always evolving, right, Susan?
Yep,
and
totally.
it's trial and error for us in the autism world, because science is so lagging.
Hmm.
It's I mean, I don't even want to say miles. It's like you can't measure how far behind science is in our world. But we do have glimpses of it and enough of it to show, like you said, that sensory motor path and how it affects the speech and everything else. And before we move on, I just want to say that Colin was very, he was upset when he kicked the hole, he made the hole, but it didn't take him long to realize, oh my God, look what I just did to Mom Swa. And he was very
Oh,
upset then that he actually created the hole.
for the
there was
action.
there was sadness and remorse, and as we continued the spelling, because I persevered through, I'm like, this is the expectation, we're going to finish the lesson, you're not getting out of this, because
Right.
he's 16 now, so he's
He's,
he's held to higher standards.
is he 15 or 16?
16.
16. Yeah, he's the same as Marisol. That's right.
Yeah, he just turned 16 in the summer, so I do hold him to higher standards because I'm going to treat him like a 16-year-old, right?
Yep.
And
Hmm.
so I ignored everything that happened, and we persevered through the rest of the lesson. And at the end of it, we
Hmm.
talked about it. And I said, I know you didn't
Yep.
mean to do it. I know your body didn't have control, but we'll work on it. We just have to break
Yep.
that pattern.
Yep.
Next subject.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of still related, but I feel like, like you beat yourself up for these little mistakes. But for me, it's actually a lesson in letting go. And like, I feel like so many times people are stuck and don't want to do something because they're afraid they're going to make a mistake. And so, yes, I made a mistake, but now we get to have another great conversation. So I feel like it's just like a great lesson, that like, to move forward, to say what's on your mind, because that's how we learn, right? Like, I actually knew this whole idea of like Carter not being in control of his body and that behavior wasn't always communication. I had heard it multiple times from my therapist, and yet I still said it. And to me, that just shows how powerful this actually is. Really good, because it leads into something that I'm really passionate about, how our beliefs are subconscious. And so sometimes we think we know something in our head, but our subconscious still hasn't learned the lesson. So we have to get deeper, and sometimes it's just time, it's repetition, just like our kids, it's repetition, it's breaking those old patterns and bringing in new patterns. Um, And so I think it's so important for people to stop being scared of making mistakes and to do something, to make a choice, to, have a conversation. And so that's just some thoughts that just jumped into my head. I don't know if there's anything popping out at you that you want to.
I love that. And I do think it was a great opportunity for you to come back on and talk because it really was eating at you for, but it wasn't like I would have to venture that for maybe only a handful of people that listened to that, your therapist and my therapist being two of them actually picked up on that. You were right. I think the
Right.
rest of everybody else truly understood what your intention was behind that statement. And
Yep.
we were learned, I'm sorry, we were taught, we did learn early on with the autism diagnosis that, behavior typically is communication. And I think it can be, like you said earlier, with pain and um, frustration and emotions, but it's not always, and it doesn't have to be. And we're
Right.
just trying to open up the world to some of the techniques that we have learned and now know to be true. And I just think that it kind of goes as far as putting things out there, like sort of being brave and just putting it out there. I think it goes back to how does that feel to you, right? And at the time, it felt really good for you because you said it was very spontaneous,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that's sort of how I am every day. And even on these podcasts, like what comes out is very spontaneous. I don't do a ton of preparation. There's a basic outline, but everything
Hmm.
is just very organic how it unfolds.
Yep.
And it, what comes out is what feels right energetically. And, I'm not
Yep.
working against
Me
the
too.
grain sort of thing. And
Hmm.
same thing with what I put on my social media pages
Hmm.
to share with everyone
Yep.
about the Maryland Autism Project. Same thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
um, there are sometimes I hesitate to post, and then I'm like, no, but this feels right, even if it is controversial, even if it is controversial to everybody else, not for obviously not for me. It feels good to
Yeah.
me, even if it isn't the standard or the norm.
Yep.
So I go with it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how I feel. Like I think we're aligned in that way. You just
Yeah.
go with what
No.
feels good and energetically. And
Yeah, I think you and I are very similar in that way. And I think the theme, I told you, I thought maybe this podcast could be called Always Learning. And there's a couple connection points for me. When I first started learning about unschooling, which is long before Carter, I was on a Yahoo group. This is pre-Facebook, and it was called Always Learning. And it was ran by a woman named Sandra Dodd. So if people really want to learn more about unschooling, she is amazing. She has an awesome website. You can look up Sandra Dodd. Her last name is Dodd. And Always Learning was just such a powerful impact on my life. And I feel like that's what we're talking about. Like we're going to be learning for the rest of our lives, which is what all human beings should be doing. But like when I met you in 2019, I think that isn't that when we met? 2019 was that event in DC.
yes,
So
yes,
Carter was like 3.5, and we still were in that like, well, he'd probably be like I think I even told you when we met that day, I'm like, he'd probably be diagnosed autistic, but we hadn't done any testing, like we had just been parenting him. And so I still feel very new to all this, to be honest, because he just got diagnosed when he was 4 and he's 6 now, so I still very much feel like a newbie. I'm learning so much at such a fast pace. But I love this quote that one of my business mentors actually brought it to my attention by Nelson Mandela. And it's like he said, I never lose, I either win or learn. And I think that is so powerful because it's just like it totally flips your perspective on things and just makes you so much more brave to just try things and to get yourself out there. And I feel like I've just been on such an intense learning spurt right now between Carter and learning about autism and all this motor stuff and therapies. And then I've been learning for my business too, which is like super fun for me. And it's just been such a relief because in the time period before that, from about 2019 through early 2021, I was just more obsessed with what's going on in the world, which I guess is a certain kind of learning, but this feels like, learning that's really relevant to my family and helping the people directly in my life. So that's kind of where I'm at with all that stuff.
So there's a couple thoughts. When you said back like in 2017, 2018, I guess, you were more interested in what was going on in the world. And I get that because I think that I was there too. And it was for a reason because you and I are again very aligned in our belief system. And so I think that we were just trying to navigate and figure things out in a world where we felt like we were
Mhm.
in the major minority. I mean, like in the negative. So, and then it just
Yes, that's
became
what it
all,
felt like for sure.
and then we
Hmm.
have definitely found our place in the world with our support
Hmm.
system, and it's growing by the day. But certainly, COVID turned things upside down like it did for everyone. And now I just
Hmm.
find it so interesting because you are helping me to learn. It's not that I'm learning. I'm intuitive about it when I've had too much input about the world, but you are
Yes.
just like,
Yes.
just unplug. And that's what I need is those
Yeah.
reminders, like, just don't even look at it, just don't
Hmm.
even listen, because it's no longer in
Yeah.
alignment. And it's like fighting what our path is actually what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this has been a process for me, and I think it's a process for everyone. It's not like overnight you can just completely unplug. It's definitely like a gradual thing where you do it more and more. And the cool thing is that the more you unplug and really focus on what's important in your life, and everyone knows what's important in their life. If you ask them, they'll say my kids, they'll say my spouse, they'll say, my parents. It's relationships. It's relationships that's important in your life. And everyone knows it, but we have habits. Habits are ingrained in our life, and then we have those subconscious beliefs too. And those beliefs are coming from our childhood, and they're coming from propaganda that we've grown up in, that we've like our lives have literally it's like we're in a soup and we're just simmering in it. And so it's not an easy thing. It's not easy. But the thing is that if you do the work, if you work on your beliefs and start to examine, why am I doing these things? Is it really helpful for me? Is it really good for my family, what I'm doing? And you start examining them, you start trying, you take a little baby step, you're like, okay, today I'm not gonna scroll my social media for at least this hour. And then that feels kind of good. So then you do it a little bit more. And so even for myself, I've been preaching this stuff now for over a year, but it's like it keeps getting taken next level, like until the point where, like, I think I texted you today. I said, I have no idea what's going on in the world and I feel great. I feel amazing. And
You, no, I was just gonna say, like I told you I was struggling. I was like, I have some anxiety right now because I accidentally stumbled onto a news headline, and it just made my
mhm,
whole chest feel like it was gonna jump out, of my skin. And
mhm,
so, and I
mhm,
want to preface to the listeners that, like, I'm not a news watcher. Like, I don't watch anything mainstream.
mhm,
I watch
right,
all independent reporting when I do watch, and it's very sporadic,
right,
and it's just enough to keep me informed, right? And
right,
to make good decisions. But I told you for like a month now, I haven't even been doing that because everything is just so big and so over the top. And like I said, I
yes.
accidentally fumbled on that, and I was like, no, I want to take it back, rewind that. I don't want to see
I
that
know, right?
because everything is
Unsee it,
just
unsee it.
too much. But and yes,
Yeah.
your response was like, I feel great because you've been unplugged the whole
I
time.
have no idea. I have no idea. It's this idea of being informed. It's really a good one to dig into. And I
Hmm.
talked a little bit about this on Brittany Schaefer's podcast.
Hmm.
The implication when we say be informed, okay, because there's always underlying beliefs, right? And there's underlying connotations to words. So really, when we say being informed, the implication is almost fully informed, okay? And so it's and we're never going to be fully informed, right? It's impossible in this world of information and technology. It's just not possible. So I absolutely agree with you that I'm not saying to be ignorant. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have some understanding of what's going on in the world. But I also think that there's something to be said for getting really, really strong in philosophy. What is your philosophy of life? How do you want to live your life? And what's most important to you? And that really will guide you every day. And then if there's something that pops up, like that actually is impacting your children or your spouse or, your life, then yeah, be informed. Go find the information, get second opinions. Like Diana said, like go to multiple sources of information. So I'm not advocating being ignorant, but I feel like that our balance is way out of whack as far as like how much we consume information and we value like quote knowledge versus our instincts and our intuition. And so I feel like we need to start raising the intuition back up so that it can be more balanced. Okay, so for example, this is an example of what I think of as someone who's trying to be fully informed. And I have people in my family who are like that. They watch the news every day. Actually, my husband's family and my family, they'll just have it on in the morning and they'll have it on at night all the time. And there's a real problem with that, in my opinion, because you're just constantly trying to be informed, and it's not necessarily helpful for your life, for your energy, for your family, if you want to be a creative person who's creating a better world. And so my personal belief, and this is relatively new for me, is that we've been programmed with a belief that to be an informed citizen is the responsible thing to do. And I'd like to flip that upside down and say that it's irresponsible to constantly be trying to be informed, because then you're not living up to your potential. You're not delivering your gifts to the world. So like I said, I'm not advocating for being ignorant at all. I'm not an ignorant person. Like I'm way informed on a lot of things, but there has to come a time where you say, okay, I've learned enough. I know how I want to live my life. And now I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go live my life, and I'm going to make this the best possible life for my children and just for my family. So that's kind of where I'm at with the information and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, makes sense. Agreed. There's a couple thoughts. So, so Aiden, my oldest son, got a little obsessed with watching the news, and it was really during COVID. And I understand that it was a scary, unsettling time for a lot of people, and mostly everybody was glued to the TV, I think, except for some outliers, of course. In any case, I really had to work with him because he was a couple years younger, right? He's definitely more mature and aware now, but I really had to work with him and teach him about, first of all, the news biases, right? And then there's what do you call it? The strategies they use to convince people, really,
to get your attention and to,
yes,
using fear, I would think. Is that kind of what you're thinking of, and things
yeah. I
like
mean,
that?
I think fear was absolutely huge in COVID. I think it went way
Yeah.
over the top. Um, I think we're finding that out now, that it was way over the top reporting. And while I understand they were trying to figure it out as they went, I think it to some degree became irresponsible because it was very fear provoked for a lot
Yeah.
of people. Um, and and now the other side of that is we have a major mental health crisis on top of everything else.
Yeah.
But, so just to say that, on his own, Aiden stopped watching as much news, but along the way, he learned some really solid critical thinking skills, which I feel so passionate about. And, just today, I read a quick post. This was actually on Channel 45 local Baltimore, and it was an incident that happened out in California a couple weeks ago, and it basically showed a very quick news clip. It was probably, I don't know, it was like a video that maybe was less than 10 seconds. And it showed a young boy who was in the cafeteria and he was pointing in an adult space. And he
Mm.
did it twice. Did you see this?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And there were four adults present and just this one young boy. And he pointed in the adult space on two separate occasions. And yes, he was close, but he was a child. And that's all it said. And then there was like clickbait that basically drew everybody to the article. And I was stunned to see the reaction of the people who watched that video. It was, sorry, the
The kid.
adult ended up being the principal, and the principal ended up shoving the kid on the ground.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
So, and I was just really so appalled and about the comments
I
from the
know.
people in this area about serves him right, kid has no respect, when I was
Mm.
younger they would have
Hmm.
whooped my butt, like things like that. And so this is where I push the envelope and say, this feels good to me because I'm representing my community, I'm representing my son,
Right.
right? And so I had to put some knowledge out there. There's hundreds of people with every news story, thousands, a plethora of them that do not use 1 ounce of critical thinking skills if they are choosing to follow it. And
Yeah.
then all this negativity comes pouring out. And I had to set the record
Hmm.
straight for our autistic community. And there was a lot of things wrong about that story, but but it wasn't about the child pointing in an adult's face. That
Right.
was the
Yeah.
only thing that wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
I do.
you know, it's disheartening to see that how many so that's the energy that we're talking about. And that's what's
Yes.
swirling around this intense media fear driven state that we're in.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't really know what we can do collectively to change that. All I know is that, like, individually, we just have to make our own choices
Yeah.
to disengage or put out something that will hopefully put some positivity into the situation
Definitely.
if you can, if it feels right.
Yes. No, I know. And I mean, I've commented on things like actually when I started blogging, that was kind of a lot of it was reactionary. Like, oh, I saw this and then I wanted to react to it. And I don't think I think it's actually part of learning and growing. And like you brought up your son, I think with our children, we have to allow them to go through that process, right? Of like figuring out what works for them and what feels good. And so I'm not an advocate of like telling kids like um what their line should be, like, you
Mm.
can't watch the news at all or anything like that. I have found with my daughter, because this is most relevant to her, she's 16. She and this is personality, I'm not saying every kid's like this, but she regulates herself better than I do. For like, she has taken herself off of social media because she realized, it was actually in 2020, she realized how badly it was making her feel. And she puts limits on herself but that's not to say she doesn't. Like, her big thing is YouTube. My kids both watch a ton of YouTube, and she's more informed than I am on certain things. And so we have discussions, we talk about things, and even for ourselves, like I'm not saying I regret that I went through these various phases throughout my adult life of diving so deep into either current events or certain issues. I think they were necessary for me. And so I'm not trying to tell people like there's a one right way. You see what I'm saying? But I think that everyone has to realize and tune into their own intuition and how they're feeling to notice if what they're doing is serving them. I think is the most important question, because when it gets to a point, for me, the story that I'm always going to share is I was swinging Carter out in the hammock. We had just moved to Florida and it was 2021. and I was like on Facebook, and I just had this revelation that I thought I was like doing something good to help the world by sharing and different news things or like my take on them. And maybe I was helping some people. I'm not saying I wasn't, but at the same time, I realized I was like literally poisoning myself. Like it was not good for me and it was not good for my kids anymore. And so I think you just kind of have to always be tuning into yourself and your own life, how you're feeling, what you're doing in your life. And, life is a journey. There's not like, you don't arrive and then that's how you do things. You're always changing and growing and evolving. So,
Yeah, I think that was beautifully said. You just always have to tune in, take care of yourself first.
yes.
I wanted to shift a little bit over back to like unschooling and homeschooling
Sure.
because you know I it's not surprising that your that your pod is the second most listened to on my pod. What I'm seeing all over the autism forums is people that are really desperate for guidance and support
Mhm.
on how they can um, transition to teaching and working with their kid at home, whether it be unschooling or some adapted curriculum.
Yeah.
Um, and what I'm seeing is a repeated pattern of speech therapists and teachers. There's a nationwide shortage, and so these children are not getting the services that they need or are owed on their IEP. And then there's just a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts, and
Mhm.
but that is the common theme that I've been seeing more and more recently. I don't
So
know if you want
it's falling to the parent basically because it's falling more and more and parents are searching. No, I'm glad. In some ways, like I said, I'm like relatively new to just if you want to call it the autism world or whatever. I'm very experienced in the unschooling world, so I do have a unique just experience and perspective with it. And so I think what has been so helpful for me is that I don't think about it and I don't worry about it because I've unschooled my kids for so long. And so I'm just continuing to parent Carter. It's not the same way that I would parent my older two children, but um, it's kind of like I said, getting back to philosophy. I already had this core philosophy of how I want to parent my child. And so I do have like a certain confidence and calmness in how I parent him. I will say that working with his therapist is really helpful for me. And that's something I've been thinking about, something I want to write about soon. It's like having an accountability partner. It's like having someone to brainstorm with me and to keep me motivated. And so I'm new to that. So it is heartbreaking to hear of families that aren't getting the services they need. And for a lot of families, it's respite too, which is what really broke my heart during 2020. It was when parents were, I know you experienced, like when your child's no longer in the school or the program that they were in. Um, but my wheels are just turning now. I don't have any like real hard, like, here's what parents should do. But I think this should be an ongoing conversation for sure. Because it is so important. I know my friend Laura Swain who helps with homeschoolers,
to.
and I love her philosophy because she's like, we're all born learners, and I think the same holds true for our autistic children too. I don't think they're um, like different in that way. They're still born learners. It just looks different for them, and it might take longer. Um, I think one of the most beautiful lessons we learned from JB's book and now with Spell to Communicate is the idea to never underestimate our children, to always believe that they can do the next thing. And like I love your story of when Colin made a hole in the wall that you're like, we're going to finish this because you weren't saying, you weren't lowering the standard for him. You were saying, I believe in you. You can do this. And so that's something that we are really just slowly ratcheting up in our house for Carter, because we really did like treat him like our baby for so many years, which was fine. He was little, but we're learning now to like, okay, you're getting older. We need to like raise the expectation. So I don't know. Do you have any like specific questions that maybe I could help parents with, like with
Well,
homeschooling that are
well, you
struggling?
had brought up that during COVID, I definitely got a big taste of what that was like, transitioning Colin from, a really heavy duty routine every day, which he did love and he did thrive in, um,
Right.
to being at home. Now
Yes.
I don't want to, paint a picture that that was all that was going on. Colin was having a really hard time in general in life during that time because puberty set in, seizures set in. So,
Right.
um, there was a period of time where we were navigating a lot of medical specialists and trying to, get him stable. Those who
Yep.
have listened to my pod know that Colin has his green card and he uses CBD, he uses medical marijuana. I'm,
Yep.
very comfortable talking
Hmm.
about that. It helps my child, and I think it helps so many others.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful that it's finally legal to use that as for
Yeah.
medicinal purposes. But Colin was not a learner who was going to respond positively virtually. It was never going to happen. So, he did
Right.
respond to
Right.
music because he's very musically motivated. He loves music. He loves music videos. So
Yeah.
his music therapist and him always met. His speech therapist and him met, I think, 2 or 3 sessions a week, and same with OT. There were a couple co-treats, but they were only like 20-minute sessions. They were really short. What I had to learn to do, and there were no academics during that time because he couldn't attend. It just wasn't a possibility. I hurt myself. I pulled my back because he kept leaving. He kept, getting up out of the chair, and
Hmm.
um it I wish I would have knew a little bit more back then what I know now about the whole motor movements and control bit, because I think it would have served me a little bit better.
Hmm.
But I ended
Yeah.
up just saying, we're done. We're not going to be accessing virtual. And that was the best thing for us. And so I did have like about a year, gosh, I think it ended up being like 15 months of no school at all. So
Hmm.
what we did
Yeah.
was, I consider it my crash course in unschooling. And we just focused
Yes.
on being in the
Totally.
natural learning environments, our everyday world, creating our own
Yep.
routines. And there were many, many teachable moments throughout the day. We worked on functional living skills and leisure skills and nutrition, and, working on trying to heal his gut. Still not healed, but we did get a lot of progress. So there was, I think, even though you might not have a concrete answer to the question about, what is this influx of parents who have kids with autism going to do, I think the take home is that there's that whole organic way of learning wherever you are. You don't need a
Hmm.
school building. And ABA is
Totally.
very, very functional and successful for many, many students, but not all students. And I'm not going to say anything negative about it because it helped Colin for a long time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now I am finding other alternative therapies that are helping him far more.
Yeah. Diana, what you just said was perfect. I mean, that's how you just described what you did in that year. I mean, that was beautiful. And I think that like any family that took that and realized, oh, that's what I need to do. Like in some ways, I can actually do more structure for my kids a lot of times than I do. And that's just because it's not a strength of mine. I'm such a go with the flow person. And
Yeah.
so, Like, it sounds like you did amazingly well with Colin. And like, I know you love getting him out too. Like when you talk about the natural environment, like getting him out on hikes and walks, and he loves the ocean. And like all of those things are so, so important. One of my big focuses has always been for my big kids, my neurotypical kids, is the social aspect. Like we need to find at least a couple good friends and we need to get together with them regularly. And I haven't focused a lot on that with Carter, like him specifically, but he's always along for the ride, like he's always there when we go to the parks and when we go to friends' houses. And actually he's just learning to like kind of hang out in a friend's house. Like recently, like we were at a friend's for half an hour. And previous to this, I pretty much dropped the kids off and then picked them up. And he came in and like he was really loud and excited for a bit. And Marisol was kind of like, oh geez, there's my brother. But he like calmed down and he kind of like sat on the couch near like the three moms and the baby and just kind of like it was like literally like 30 seconds to a minute, okay, Diana, because he doesn't sit super still. But I was like, oh
Right.
my gosh, look at my kid just like hanging out on the couch there. And then he ended up playing with like the floor rugs and like just entertaining himself for like a good 10-15 minutes. And it was awesome. And I'm like, oh, this is so nice. I'm like hanging out in someone's house with Carter, which it's new. And I think that's the thing, especially for parents of children with younger autistic children. Like,
Mhm.
we really have to appreciate those small little, like, you have to notice them. Like, oh my gosh, we just did something huge. Like his big progress at therapy the past 9 months has been he's staying in one room now. That's like huge progress. Like before he was like
It's
going to
huge.
all the rooms in the office. So just those little things. So yeah, it's such a journey.
I think it's more challenging. I don't want to say it's more challenging. It's a different kind of challenging when the kids are younger, for sure. And what I have learned is, and I will openly admit this, um, I feel like in the younger years, because it was so much, and I work full time. I don't know how I did
Mhm.
that. I don't remember a lot of it. Um, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I did it well and successfully. And so then what happened was on the weekends I was pretty much like we were a hermit. Like everyone just stayed in the house. And even our
Yeah.
neighbors are like, what's up with them? But then, it got a little easier as we got old, as the kids got older. And then I would say that now that Colin is 16, what we did over the summer, and it wasn't my idea, it was another lovely parent whose child goes to school with Colin. She she reached out personally and basically created this social group for us on the weekends.
Oh, that's so
And
nice.
so there's like 10 families, and not everybody shows up all the time. And sometimes it's just a
Mhm.
couple people, and sometimes it's 6 people, and sometimes it's 10 people. But it is an opportunity to get the kids together now that they're a little bit older, outside of the
Mhm.
school setting, in nature, in a social environment, and gives the parents time to talk and have meaningful conversations. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to her that she
Yes.
coordinated it,
It's
because it's opened up our world socially, which is
yes.
um, so important.
That sounds awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, it's beautiful.
So we are getting close to the hour, if not already surpassed it. We could talk for 5 hours, but I think people
Yes, we
might not
could.
be able to hang in there with us. But I before we sign off, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about a wonderful opportunity that you're sharing with everyone. It's coming up soon at the end of September.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I am kind of kicking off this challenge. It's for medical freedom advocates, and it's a 5-day challenge. It's free. And I'm calling it the Get Moving Challenge. So kind of we kind of talked about it earlier today, but it's for anyone who feels kind of stuck. And people are stuck for various reasons. Maybe they're very anxious. Maybe they feel overwhelmed by what's going on in the world, or how large the problems seem. Some people just feel stuck, more like a depressed stuck, because they feel hopeless, maybe. So there's lots of different reasons that we can get stuck. And so what I have seen through my life, and then through the people I've been working with and coaching the past year, is that there's things that we can do and we have commonalities. And so I'm hosting this challenge. It's 5 days. It's going to be very light. It's not like a huge commitment. I will come on every day at 11 a.m. and do lives in the private group and just focus on one small thing, one small teaching, and then give you one really small thing to do. It probably won't take you, 5-10 minutes each day. And the focus is to get moving. And when I say get moving, I mean energetically, because I truly believe when our internal energy is moving, then that's when we'll start seeing it outside. We'll start taking more action in our lives. And when I say take action, I don't want people to feel intimidated, like they're doing some huge thing. It's small steps that get us on a path to feeling better about our lives.
It sounds wonderful and beautiful and so inspiring. And of course, I'll participate because I participate in as many things as possible that you lead, because I just love you so much. And
Oh, thank you,
you
Diana.
really are. I mean, I don't know if everybody remembers, but Susan was a teacher years ago, and now she's just a different kind of teacher. And we all
Yes.
need Susan in our life. She's quite the
No, thank
inspiration.
you. Oh, that means so much to me. Thank you for saying that. And
Of
I'm
course.
looking forward to having you there because I feel the same way. Like it's an energetic exchange, right? Like we inspire each other. And I truly feel that way about everyone I've worked with. It's an ongoing experiment. I'm loving it. And that's what I want to do. I want to share my energy with people and just show them, because I think sometimes people look at me and maybe they are a little, like they love me, but they're like, oh, I couldn't be like that. Like Susan, she's like high on life or something. Like there's something. And I'm like, I just want people to know I was not always this way. I had that anxiety. I had, apathy, or like just feeling de-energized or overwhelmed. I felt all those things. And so I understand, I've been there. And that's what I want to share with you, is how to start taking those steps to feeling like this, feeling like on fire for life, and where you can just text your friend and be like, oh, this is the best day ever. I'm having the best day ever. And yesterday was the best day ever. And tomorrow is going to be the best day ever. And so that's my mission.
I absolutely love that. And I'm looking forward to it. August was a bit hard
Mm-hmm.
in
The
in
summer was
in
hard,
my
I think.
world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's been
So
hard for a lot of people. Yeah,
yeah. So I'm certainly,
definitely.
I still have all the tools that I, always use, the meditation, the deep
Yes.
breathing, the walking, the, you know, prayer, journaling. My pod is such a
Yes.
therapeutic process for me, and real
Totally.
therapy, talking to someone. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a different process when you have when you show up every day. What This one's for 5 days, and you show up for yourself and you receive inspiration and guidance from someone else. It's a different process and
Absolutely.
experience, and I think it lasts longer.
Yeah.
That's been my experience anyway.
I've had this imagery in my head the past couple of days, and it's not something new for me, but I think of it with unschooling a lot, but you just made me think of it. There's times in our life where we kind of need to prime the pump. You know, the old wells where you had to pump them. Do you know what I'm talking about? And the
Yes.
water didn't come up right away. When you prime the pump, you have to keep going until the water finally starts flowing. And there's just times in life where we just need a little extra, like you have so many tools. You're like, I'm doing all the right things, but sometimes we just need a little extra to get us started, to spark that flame again. And so I agree with you. I've been thinking the same thing. Like I have the people that I'm looking for this inspiration and motivation and inspiration. It's like exercise. You don't just do it once and then you're done, or eating healthy. Like all of these things are things that you have to continually do. They're practice. And if you start feeling stagnant in one area of your life, the first thing is to notice it, right? Like we keep talking about that, you have to actually notice it. And then once you notice it, you can do something about it. You can be like, oh man, I'm just feeling like a little less inspired than I want to. So let me go find inspiration. You can actually seek it out. So I love that you said that, Diana.
It felt good. It felt right.
Yay, I love it.
So I'm going to put the information in the pod notes, but do you want to just tell
Perfect.
people again, just remind them of your page?
Yes. Yes. So the easiest thing to do probably is to go to my new website. It's just riseupwithsusanmay.com, because I have right at the top of all the pages, the information for the Get Moving Challenge. But I will also give Diana the link to go directly to the Get Moving Challenge, where you can sign up. And like I said, it's free. You just got to put your name and email. I will encourage people, if you already follow me, if you're already on my email list or in my free group, you still need to sign up for the challenge so that you're getting those specific emails and reminders.
Okay. All right. That
Okay.
sounds perfect.
Okay.
Well, I'm super excited, and the dogs and Colin are being very demanding right now. So
It's okay. We've been talking a long time.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have this time with you again, Susan.
Me too.
So thank you so much, and I hope you have a great night and a great weekend.
You too.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Diana. Okay,
All right.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.